A very good afternoon, a very good morning. I hope you are all doing well around the world. A very good afternoon to my people in Africa. And I just want to welcome you to our podcast today as we talk about Youth Day, youth and education in Africa. I do understand that we are in the Youth Month, and on June 16, we'll be commemorating 49 years after June 1976. And to those who are not familiar with what June 1976 is all about, it is commemorated in South Africa as Youth Day, making a pivotal moment in the nation's history. In 1976, on June 16, thousands of black school children, South Africans, mainly from Soweto, protested against the apartheid regime as oppressive education policies, particularly the enforcement of Afrikaans as the medium of instruction in schools. And they went all out, students, mainly teenagers, and some of them were like Hector Peterson, who was only 12 years old by then. And it got me thinking, 49 years later, how many 12-year-olds can actually go out there and fight for what they believe in? How many 12-year-olds can actually go out there and do something about a situation that they feel that is oppressive? It's quite impressive, the history of Africa. Looking at Southern Africa, those who went to war. I was This morning I was talking about the Fantastic Seven, those seven people who fought the Chinoi battle in Zimbabwe. The youngest was 14, and the oldest was 21 years old. A 21-year-old was leading, or well, they were a team. So when you look at those age groups and you look at us youth in in our 30s and 40s, you look at our young people now. That when we talk about young people, we are talking of people our age groups, 30s, 40s, 50s. We are the young people who want our voice in parliament. We are the young people who want to be involved in business, in all of that. But when we look at 40, 50 years ago, the young people that went all out to fight were 12-year-olds, 14-year-old. What's happening? What's the mindset? What's the difference between their mindset and our mindset? Or is it because we don't have the same enemy or the same energy? What drove them? What pushed them? What motivated these young people to say, a 15-year-old Joyce Mujuru somewhere in Zim said, I'm just going to go out there and fight for our liberation? A 12-year-old Hector Peterson said, I'm just going to go out there and fight the system, the apartheid system. What is it? What was moving them? Is it the pressure? Is it that they were a different breed, or they were not colonized? Their mindset was not colonized. Because right now, when I think of something, I'll be like, the government is not doing anything. Or we've got everybody coming to take African resources. What are the African leaders doing? That's what I think about. What are the African leaders doing? Those young people had leaders, right? They had, they had their own leaders, they had their little setups, but they still felt like we are going out there. Or did we have a different caliber of leadership back then? Well, we're going to answer those questions. And if you really want to participate in this, you can always add your comments. We'll see the comments here. We'll be reading the comments. If you've got questions, please just send in. If you've got any contribution that you want to put in, you are more than welcome. And we are joined in today by Mr. Patrick Mashanda, who is an expert in education and youth development. He's a seasoned program and operations leader with over 15 years of experience driving impactful activities in Africa, mainly in Zimbabwe and South Africa, youth empowerment and community development sectors, with a career rooted in humanitarian work, not-for-profit management. He also brings his deep expertise in designing and coordinating stakeholder programs that uplift and equip young people in Africa. I'm first met Mr. Mashanda in high school. He was my teacher. And then I'm just looking at age differences and thinking, like, how did he get there? And this is my first question to him. What motivated you to go in leadership, teaching youth leadership at a very young age? Because you really started at a very young age. And how did you manage to empower and motivate young people? You did play a very important role when we were in high school, not only for our stream, but the younger people, they speak a lot about you, how you were pushing young people to scripture union, which was also great and amazing to capture their minds when they were still very young. How did you get there? What motivated you as a young person in Africa?
Greetings, Mashanda. Greetings also to your listeners and viewers across the globe. Yes, thank you for that introduction. And like you are asking interesting questions, especially as you reflect on this Youth Day and what young people could do. But straight to answer your question, I would definitely say that we might be different as young people in terms of how we deal with the challenges around us. But I am one of those. I mean, you were mentioning those who were 14, 12 years old, finding themselves in the mountains, be it in Mozambique and other places where they would go, Tanzania, during the liberation struggle, where one is coming from, where one was coming from, or literally the experiences, daily experiences of life, I would say is what drove me into this deliberate, what began to say that I was born to do this because it becomes so natural. It's a natural response to our environment, especially for young people, to say we can only emancipate ourselves from the circumstances around us. And I, for one, I always share, long story short, at some point, I know what it is sleeping hungry. I
That's
went
right.
to school barefooted up to even grade 10. I have those components in me, and even looking at around where you don't necessarily find role models, you then get to say, if I don't rise, we might all die and perish and do nothing. So I would say that my kind of involvement is more from responding to realities, to the lack, to the poverty, to the suffering around, and where there are no capabilities even from our parents, even when we want, are not capable.
That's
They may
right.
not have the skill and so on. So I would say that's literally in a snapshot, literally why I ended up just finding myself having to survive for myself and for those that I can influence.
Okay, that's really amazing. And you mentioned that going to school barefooted, walking a long distance to go to school. What has changed between that time and now? I still see some people, some school kids in Africa going to school barefooted, walking miles. Do you think there's going to be any type of change in the next 10 to 20 years? Because you are sharing this, and there's another kid who's still going through that right now, 2025.
Yes, I would say that I mean, I know for a fact, even if we ask Mother Teresa if she was around to say, did you
Yes,
help every orphan in the world? She would say, absolutely no. But I did the best I could. So I am simply saying that, yes, I'm talking about, from the late 80s into the 90s and so on, where I would go to school barefooted because of the abject poverty in which I was in, and the realities of my family where I was coming from, and of course, I would say the absence of necessary interventions. I would not say by government only, but maybe by civil society to alleviate the situation, or even the absence of opportunities that could
that's right.
see myself probably moving out of that. So what I'm simply saying is that we keep talking about it across the globe. There are young people who still go to school, barefooted. I would really honestly say that there is a slight bit of change. I mean, I remember that the change is not it's not really it could be significant, but I'm saying not every child is being assisted. There's still work to be done, but I think as the world is evolving, I would really say for the young people in this time, I'm not saying life is easier, but I'm saying opportunities seem to have shifted up a bit because of
That's right.
just general natural development that has been happening in nations. And some of it, of course, might not be development in its true definition. For an example, availability of cheap goods. It might not be development, but
Yeah.
literally during our time, we had to use leaves of trees. But in this age and time, you can be able to afford maybe flip flops for 20 rand, so it's
Yeah.
becoming affordable. But I can tell you, we some of us, there were a time where there was a scarcity of even the cheap kind of like items that we would use as young people. So what could have
That's right.
changed could just be a natural progression of towards probably availability of affordable, low cost, options. Not because that brings quality of life. I need to be very clear on that. But it's simply to keep the young people going, because kids still go to toilets, to schools that have pit toilets, even up to now.
That's true.
But we have
Yeah.
nations where there's progress, where you hardly can find a pit toilet. But we still have nations where children are still learning under a grass, under some thatch, not even a
That's
nice
right.
thatch for that matter, unfortunately. One that is done by village women who are just trying to be sure that the children have something. So we still have those in some pockets of the world, even if the opportunities are there for that progression to happen, because there's access to really some bit of options which are cheaper, not the best, but the options actually exist. So I feel that the children and youth of this age where we are could literally be able to access, and I feel that the opportunities and chances are way higher than in the past, but there's still more work that needs to be done to unlock that access.
Wow. Yeah, this is actually true. And looking at technology, the change in technology, and you'd find that for the most part, uh, most young people have got access to technology. So you cannot say
Absolutely.
I cannot learn a skill when you are able to spend time on social media. You can watch a video on YouTube, and YouTube is a university on its own. So you are actually able to
Absolutely.
do certain courses. But then we go back to rural Africa, which constitutes like 80% of most of African countries. That part of Africa, there is a kid who is 20 years old. Well, in the Western world, you can't call them kids anymore. So we've got a young person who is 20 years old. They've never touched a cell phone. They don't know how a smartphone works. They don't know how to switch on a computer. So, in terms of a change in how things are back then, were back then, and now, there is still that gap, the digital divide, that gap where some people have no access to information and resources. How do we bridge that? Who goes back there? Is it you, as Mr. Mashanda, who have seen the struggle, and now you want to go back and do something? How is it working, as somebody who's been doing this for a very long time?
Yeah, so I remember in 2014 we ran a survey. We were trying to explore uh, how the gadgets access to devices and data is actually shifting up, and we were comparing with some places like India and so forth. And we observed that there has been literally a bit of a shift. I think at the point we were able, like from the survey we did, we observed about 40% of the young people were having access.
That's right.
And we were trying to figure out, yes, it might not have been the access into their own, but maybe their brothers or their sisters or their moms after work. And we checked again when we were going into the COVID lockdowns. We were able to literally re-engineer our operations to realize that we cannot give an excuse that a young person can be left behind in learning because of a pandemic. They need to continue trying to better themselves because age is ticking, life is going on. So we try to move online, and we did a check. And I think I observed that the number had moved to about 60%, being able to access through their cell phone that they were given, through a friend's, through, some form of access was there at about 50% or 60% rather of the young people who were in contact. We had actually more of like frequent. Of course, we had another percentage that is, of course, intermittent, now and then when mom is back in the weekend from Ama Kitchen where she works. So what I'm simply saying in short is that as the world progresses, there really has been a bit of a shift, because I know in some places in Africa, you would need to sell a cow or two to get a cell phone.
That's right.
I know people who bought just like the starter pack or the line, they actually sold Inkomo, a cow yet to go.
I remember
But
those
then,
days.
but then you come now into this current time, you go, into a shop you can get for 50 cents. Some of them are being given for free in some
For
places.
free. That's true.
Right. So I'm saying the world has moved it towards that direction. And I fully agree with you that it really provides platforms and options for young people to say that the options are literally available. But we should never be misguided to say that it is literally for everybody. Because if we are saying 60%, 40% is such a huge number among our young people. Even if it was 15% or 10% that have no access, it's still quite high. So what I'm trying to say is, while we have seen a bit of progress with availability and access, we can still tell that devices and data are still pretty expensive in Africa. And literally, when we look at the affordability level, so this is not to say it might be cheaper in Europe, but disposable income in Africa is also lower. So the point I'm
That's
making is more as a relative of where the people are from affordability, from incomes. We still have some serious gaps for people affording. So I'm raising the points that we ended up during the COVID time. We went and had a conversation with one of the network service providers in the country, in South Africa, and we accessed a bit of low cost gadgets, which could actually go onto certain platforms at zero, where we call that zero rated.
Yeah, that's right.
And we managed to buy for all I think we had about 500 grade 12s that we needed to reach. We were able to buy for everybody. It's across the country. So the question you're asking to say, what is probably civil society? Is it a person who has to do it? Is it whatever? I can tell you, we had a person who bought like 15 for some learners to say, I'm just buying 15. Now, I'm bringing that to say there are young people who can be assisted by certain entities, like maybe I work, or there are programs that can run, or we have seen in the province where I reside, in Gauteng, in South Africa, where the previous premier was pushing for tablets in every school to enhance access. But literally, it was only in certain schools, and some of them, of course, did not last for the night. They were stolen. Right.
Wow.
I'm raising those components to say that efforts will be there, but literally, until it becomes that stealing a cell phone becomes lucrative when the cell phone is still expensive in the land. When it's cheaper, there's no attraction to it being stolen, even in the school, those tablets.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, makes sense.
So the long and short of it is that, yes, in Africa, access is still a mission, more so in the rural spaces you have mentioned, because affordability is still a huge issue. Cell phones, tablets are still expensive in Africa, more so for data, as the young want to call it. And you look at even the network service providers, some countries don't allow easy access. You find that is so regularized that for whatever reasons, but the children will only access after the adults if they accessed it for so many years. But if then adults are struggling to access, it means it's going to be way difficult for that rural child in Matatiela in the Eastern Cape to be able to access unlimited access with the devices and with data. So I needed to a bit of put a thrust into the issue of access, which is still a challenge in the country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for highlighting that. You mentioned that you had people buying data for some of these young people, but what was the impact of doing that, and how many? Just a rough number or percentage of those who managed to actually take advantage of that. What I want to try and understand here is what motivates young people. Is it something within them as an individual to say, I want to make it? And then when they've got access to resources, they grab that opportunity and go with it? Or is it like we need to work really hard as an external force or external inspiration to touch more young people? You would find that growing up in Berengwa, you know, what inspired us would be Tula Mapolisa or sorry, or any other businessman in the area. That's just what you see. There is no drive from within to say, you know, I can be whoever I want to be. So when you meet with resources with that mindset, you now grab that opportunity. What is it? I just want to understand from you. We have worked with so many young people.
Yeah, so you have raised a very fundamental in your intros, a bit of relay the foundation to say, as young people, we need, I know one leader, Joshua Mkabuko, the late vice president of Zimbabwe, once said, you know, the country might be perishing, but the young people will save it. But the component you are questioning and we are raising now is about, is there an appetite, is there a drive among young people to really literally save themselves in the process, not only to wait for opportunities to come to them, but for them to go out hunting for opportunities relentlessly slow. And I would really appreciate that definitely on this youth day, we need to continue to emphasize to the young people, go out there, look opportunities. Young people, reach out to where you think help might come from, because the gaps and the challenges are overwhelming. Governments get overwhelmed by the need and the gaps that we are having, including those who are helping. That's why I said Mother Teresa could not help every orphan in the world. Neither can we say Tate Mandela emancipated every South African until we moved on. The gaps remain, the need remains overwhelming. So even when we manage to source those resources, I can safely tell you that we had young people who literally took initiative. Some would say I reached out to my aunt who is in Pretoria, I mean the Eastern Cape, and asked if she had an old phone somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And literally confirmed that the aunt was able to courier the phone. My emphasis is about, there are some young people who reached out to say, we need this service, we don't have this resource. And literally an evidence that, let it not be that we generalize that young people are not looking for opportunity. There are some who are literally hunting and pressing relentlessly so to look for opportunities. We had one of our amazing pass rates in the COVID year results. Of course, it was beat by last year. We went a bit higher. But I can tell you, we were pretty so amazed that the young people, not only did they embrace those resources with passion, we observed even we hardly lost, I think we had only 3 breakages.
Wow.
I'm talking over a period of almost a year. And you realize that when we wanted them back, we were able to get almost 100% back to give to the next group of learners.
Wow.
All that is evidence that young people are willing, but some might not necessarily have the energy which we need to do through these platforms, these conversations, Matarenda, that you are raising in Africa. Let's steer them up. Go out. You may not have an asset. You may not have a place to do your CV. You may not have a place to get data to do your assignment. Can you reach
That's right.
out to your brother or a relative who is in another city? Let them actually do something, Google up for you, send it to you, or maybe ask them for data if you have the phone and you don't have data. Because the reaching out, the speaking out is exactly what the June 16 young people did. They confronted the situation. We are not saying we are still in the apartheid, we are still in colonialism.
Yeah.
Where we are, it's only the different form of colonialism. We are
That's
still
right.
segregated, a different form of apartheid as young people. We are
Mhm.
excluded, maybe by just not having the resources, or by just maybe by the skin color, or by going to a school in the township. You may not have proper toilets. One who goes in the city, there's proper toilets, even warm water to wash hands. But if
That's
we don't
right.
stand and knock and say, as young people, we are looking for this. It's not about we want it for free.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking for this. We want to use this. We want access to this. Could we knock on certain doors, and the doors that should open, some people will not do it until someone says it. Even the
That's
Bible
right.
is very clear. Knock and the door will be opened. Seek
Yeah.
and you shall find. The moment we don't seek as young people and sit, we think that solutions will grow on trees.
Yeah.
It will not happen. The moment we are silenced, when we can't have, if we know there's a Vodacom, an MTN, an Econet, whatever orange network in our area, we need to go to them and ask for certain aspects. What can they give us as young people?
That's true.
I can tell that the young people who are really raring to go, we need to encourage them to knock. I can tell you,
Mm-hmm.
and they will receive. People will not think about you unless you speak about your gaps as young people in terms of access to resources, to energy. Rather to education and so on. But I feel that from the question, there are young people who reached out to their relatives. And I can tell you
Yeah.
through that, young people can be responsible, can be accountable, can be able to utilize resources that are given, even if they are shared resources for
That's
better
right.
outcomes in life.
All right. So, how do we keep this momentum going? Because you'd find that in our societies, we have got so many gatekeepers. We grew up in an area where we were told you not amount to anything. Those words were spoken to us. Now you are a young person who is fighting, who is telling themselves, I can get somewhere. But there is an older person who wants to try and suppress them, who can really kill their spirits. How do you keep
Yeah.
them motivated? How do they stay motivated? This is a young person who have their own self-motivation, their eagerness, their willingness to learn. But
Yeah.
how do we kind of protect them from any other outside forces and keep them motivated? Is it our duty, or we just play it until a certain period and then they can push themselves forward? How have you done that?
I've always said, as long as we have breath,
Mhm.
we have a duty and a mandate to carry one another as Africans. The same I will say on this Youth Day to the youth. As long as you have breath, you have a duty to carry one another. It is in giving up and in that element of thinking that the walls will not crack one day, that we will be destroyed. But in the faith of standing together, learning from the leaders who have gone ahead of us, we have demanded, in the presence of barrels of guns looking at them, our situation in this time as youths
Mhm.
is, in my view, doable. So I would say, in the face of all forms of discouragement, keep reaching out.
That's
In
right.
the forms of one feeling that they are in their own little corner, find platforms where you can connect with like-minded youths. I can tell you there are organizations that are there, youth-led movements that exist. There are platforms even online where you can sign up, get anecdotes. Platforms such as even this platform. One needs to know, when I am discouraged, where can I find help?
That's right.
Young people need to know they need in their tools kit of survival 3-4 places that they should be able to call. This cannot be limited to their family members.
Yeah,
This cannot be limited to their school.
that's right.
They need to know youth organizations. They need to know certain areas of government, be it it's like your National Youth Development Agency. Is it like even the International United Nations youth platforms? Sometimes they call for representatives from certain countries in Africa. They don't have applications because the youth in Africa are not looking into that. In the
That's right.
end, they think there are no individuals who can represent. So we need to know, in your tools kit as a young person, besides the relative you can go to for help, get
Yeah,
2-3 other institutions, private, find them, be it it's a church group, there is always help and inspiration somewhere. And as the youth band together and make demands for a better life, I am very confident we will see more and more young people coming out. I will also conclude this point by an example.
hmm,
I have one person in particular who actually I interacted with as a young person, having looked for a job, no opportunities were opening up. Very discouraged, was doing some menial job at some service station. He was not being paid. It was a mess. And
wow,
I heard of a leadership opportunity. And I called him. He says, I can't use a computer. I called him to my house. I showed him how to do a computer.
Mm.
I coached him how to go and how to dress for an interview. Remember, I had met this person randomly somehow. The person was able to get that internship. I continued to coach that person. I'm talking about a story from about 2012.
hmm,
The person is now a very senior manager
wow,
in a place, impacting. He is proud that through his hands there are 2 or 3 people who are now doctors who have been
wow,
mentored by him. I remember him sending me with another girl in a gray uniform to some institution to apply for medicine. That girl is a qualified doctor as of like 2 years ago. And it is
wow,
through this boy who I assisted who could not use a computer.
wow,
What am I saying? Youth, there is no need for you to think because you don't have a father or a mother to think your life is stuck. There's help out there. Figure it out in your toolkit. You have 3-4 places that are proper, including professional, that you can reach out to. There's always help. Thank you.
wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And as we close, what is your vision for the future of education in Africa? Just looking at our current curriculum and where the world is going, the digital world is here, and we are still far behind. What do you think about the curriculum, and what will be the future of education be like in 10 to 20 years from now?
We lament Africa. The education has been premised on employment. The thinking has been about learning about the locust, head, thorax, abdomen,
Yeah, yeah.
without
I remember those days.
unlocking the critical thinking that every child so needs. I have seen on social media where children in primary school, maybe in Japan, spend time in the lab playing around with electronics.
Mm-hmm.
Our children during PE in school or during whatever, they are dragging, bricks there somewhere out there. No deliberate focus on creating a critical thinking mind for ideation, for innovation. My appeal to the youth, even to Africa, is that we need to focus on skills-based education. Not everybody is going to have a degree. I feel that even universities should publish, or even schools should publish, to say after children have finished matric or have finished form 4 in Chegute High School, how many people of those 70 who were in form 4 have gone to do degrees?
Yeah.
I will tell you, it might be 1 out of 7.
Yeah.
7 out of the 70. It means that the degrees focused education is good, but it's not for everybody. What happens to the rest? So we need a skills-based education. Agriculture, building, electronics,
That's
and all
right.
that. We need to strengthen that, including serious vocational components, cell phone repairs. We
That's
are
right.
busy with some
Computer
of these
repairs,
furniture repairs, even the
plumbing,
basics of mechanics, plumbing.
agriculture. Yeah, you mentioned that. Sewing,
Agriculture has
baking.
been, agriculture has been taken for granted, because I remember people in school would laugh at those doing agriculture as if those doing fashion and fabrics were more fashionable.
Yeah, I was
Yet
doing agriculture. It was nice.
you realize that you then have the people from other continents coming to farm better here where we are, while it
Oh, that's right.
ourselves
We speak
did
good
it in
English.
school. We speak good English, absolutely. You have put it well. Second component I wanted to emphasize. So it's skills-based education, such that even if someone drops out of school, we may want to stop it. We hope we win, but if it happens, they have a skill already before they finish school.
That's right.
Point number 2. The second point is about this whole fourth industrial revolution focused perspective, which I call future skills. Future skills need to be introduced from primary school, from toddlers. Toddlers are speaking good English because of what they call cocoa melon.
Yeah, yeah.
For those who have access, it means they have ability to learn how to just do basics. It can start with even graphic design, how to draw your dad, your mom. We need 4IR aspects to be ingrained into our education, so that we create thinking minds, not following minds. We create innovators, not employees. If our education in Africa can focus on those 2 fundamental components, we will be very sure that we are doing a favor to the children, to the future, to ourselves, because development can be faster. We have seen even children who are in primary designing world-class ideas already. It's happening in the world.
That's
I
right.
saw some boy from India. I think if he was 11 years, 12 years, or 9 years, I can't remember, being even actually talked about at Google. I think was being even called to work at Google, to begin to think at Google. We need that in Africa. Not that we should be talking about head, thorax, and abdomen, which goes nowhere. Rather, let's focus on skills-based learning. Let's focus on future skills, robotics, and creativity from as early as even ECD, not just singing songs in ECD for slogans.
That's right.
Thank you.
Sloggering. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And when we talk about 4IR, the fourth industrial revolution, young people should look into the Cisco cybersecurity. It's free. You can just
Absolutely.
log onto their website to do that. Huawei also have those free IT courses. You can also partner with us. We run a program on free IT courses online. You just need your internet gadgets, and you are good to go. And all of these skills are internationally recognized, which means with a Cisco certificate, sorry about that, you can actually go and work for any international company that needs that type of skill. So it's not limited to you sitting in Africa and learning about it and getting a job just in your village if there are no jobs. And most companies right now, they are doing remote work. So you can be able to work for anybody in the world and the big bucks. There's so much money to be made around that. So we need to embrace that. And young people, as you listened, please decolonize your mind from everything that apartheid did, and decolonize your mindset from the systems that we created within our own societies. Someone who will tell you that you
Can
are,
I, can I interject, Matarenda? One point
yes,
I should not leave without mentioning.
yes,
You are not employed. You are a NEET, what they call NEETs, not in education, in employment, or any form of training.
that's right.
You need to know that work-based training is powerful. You don't have school fees to pay. You say you don't have internet, but nearby your house, there is a mama who is crafting some buckets or crafting some artwork,
Uh-huh.
Go there and volunteer for free to learn.
That's
You
the
have a
way.
mechanic nearby who is go and volunteer, learn about spanner number 10 and go and do that. You got, I know a bit about Matarenda's life where she was able to even understand systems as a cleaner, but about ICT, but by
That's
simply
right.
observing, learning, and going. So, as a graduate, no excuse for staying at home. As
That's
a
true.
person who is unemployed, no excuse for spending time at home. Find a place to volunteer, be it it's a local NPO, be it just find somewhere where you can be allowed to do the work they do to help them there for free. I will emphasize.
Mhm.
While you learn experience, many of us have been hired from the point of volunteering and learning the skill. And in some countries, people who are literally doing most of the jobs are literally self-taught. Then they seek certification after.
After
I
that,
thank you.
that's right. Yeah, thank you so much for emphasizing that. I always tell young people, like, find an organization, volunteer. I got exposed through the likes of the Organization of African Youth and other organizations that I volunteered to just to do some stuff. I was just running around, but I learned so much and got exposed to international platforms, to learn so much. To every young people who is out there, you can reach out to Patrick Mashanda on his LinkedIn, Facebook, he's on social media. So reach out to him, find out what they do, how they do it, and where, and be part of it. You can always reach out to me. I can refer you to different organizations that you can just go and volunteer and do some work and learn as much as you can. This is for me in closing, and thank you so much for being part of this conversation. And let's continue with the conversation throughout the month so that we can reach more people. Anything that you want to say in closing?
Thank you so much for having me, Matanda, and to the viewers all over the world. We are able to make it as young people. We still have hope. We will not allow the challenges to overwhelm us. As young people, we always thrive. So let's band together. Let's make it work. Let's make the world turn in a new direction because of our interventions, our innovation, and let's keep going. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And join us again tomorrow for Father's Day celebrations. Thank you from us.
Awesome. Bye. Thank you. Bye for
All
now.
right. All right.